Welcome to the It's All About Missions podcast with Brady Van Winkle, as we endeavor to talk about missions and the need for the gospel all around the world. We hope we can help you find your place in world evangelism. And for questions or for more information, please check out it'sallaboutmissions.com. And now we hope you enjoy the show. Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of It's All About Missions Country of the Week Country Spotlight, as we go to Central America, and we are looking at the Central American country of Honduras. Maybe you know a little bit about Honduras, maybe you do not. Honduras there is settled right beside El Salvador, and down there in the basin there in Central America, so El Salvador is one of its neighbors. But you know, there's a great need for the gospel there. There's a population of almost 10 million people. Pretty much 90% of the country is Christian, but that's going to be a majority of that's going to be Catholic. There is Protestantism in there, but there's a large number of Catholics there. The main language, obviously being a Central American country, is going to be Spanish. The capital city, and this is a hard one, guys. I have no clue how to say this one, so I'm going to try my best. I think it's Tegucigalpa. There's probably a Spanish way of saying that. I'm probably saying it terribly. You know, guys, I do my best on these. Some of these names are difficult and hard, but you know, in the capital city, there is also the largest city. About 1 million people live in and around the capital city. There's one other city that's got a little over 500,000 people in it. But there's 10 million people, and there's just a great need for the gospel there. As I said, it's a Catholic country, majority Catholic country. Openness for the gospel, openness to go and plant churches and start churches there. But there's just a need for people, and it's interesting to read some of the history. Maybe you know anything about Honduras, maybe you don't. But there's been a lot of political unrest there from time to time. Even as recent as 2009, there was a coup that happened in the country that changed over, but then that government was told was not recognized by any other countries. And then also, they've been hit several times with many different hurricanes and things like that. I was reading some of the different hurricanes that hit it, did a lot of damage to it. 1998, I believe, was a major one that did a ton of damage to the country and hurt the economy, hurt the people. 8 people died. But you know, what's really needful in the country is a gospel light witness. People that are willing to go. And I know we have friends of ours that are going there. The Garcia family, Andrew Garcia and his wife, they are headed to Honduras, and that is great. We're excited for them to get there. He's been there before. He's done some work in there. And I know there's other missionaries there in Honduras, but you know, there's just a great need for the gospel there. And yes, you said, well, Brady, you said there's missionaries there, so why don't we just be praying for other countries? Well, I don't just pick and choose. We're doing every country of the world because God told us to take the gospel to the whole world, and there's a need for us to go preach the gospel in Honduras. And although there's laborers there, we need more laborers. It's not enough. There's 10 million people, and I'm sure there's not enough missionaries to reach all those people and to reach out to different places. We need to pray that God will raise up some more laborers. We need praying for those missionaries that are there, though, that God will give them fruit for their labor, that God will give them men that they can train and raise up and send out to plant churches all across Central America and all across even into Latin America, South America, places like that. But also we need to be praying for the Honduran pastors, that God will give them boldness, that God will give them fruit, that God will see their churches grow and men to be raised up in those churches, that those men can be sent out to plant churches all around. On top of that, we need to pray for the Honduran Christians that are willing to be bold and share the gospel with their friends, their family members in a majority Roman Catholic country when most of the people, actually, is what I read, is most of the people there, as in a lot of Latin American countries, are very nominal. So they're Roman Catholic because that's what their parents have been for centuries, and their families have been. That's what you're supposed to be, but you know, they're not going to the church, not going to mass regularly or anything like that. You know, we need to be praying for those people, the Honduran people, 10 million people who have been blinded by Catholicism, have been blinded by a religion that have told them to work and do all these things, and hopefully if they're good enough, you know, they might earn favor enough with God to get to heaven one day. And if not, maybe your family can do something and pray and get you to heaven. But you need to be praying for God to raise up some more laborers to go take the gospel there to Honduras. That God will work in the hearts and the lives of these Honduran people, that they will see the truth of the gospel and turn from darkness into light, and God will do a great work there. And we'll just pray for God to raise up some more laborers in Honduras. Not only we see Honduras reach the gospel, we can see the surrounding towns and cities and countries that are around there reach with the gospel, because we serve a big God who wants to see the whole world reach with the gospel. And I tell you to be praying for Honduras to reach the gospel, praying for the world to reach the gospel, but you know, I want to challenge you to be doing all that you can personally to help see the world reach the gospel. And that includes not only praying, that should mean being faithful in your church, that means being serving in your church, getting involved in every ministry possible, being involved in soul winning and discipleship, and also being involved in the missions program, talking to missionaries, reading missionary letters and writing back to them, communicating with missionaries, but also going on mission trips and ultimately giving your life and saying, God, I will surrender my life. Every Christian should be surrendered to whatever God has for him, but every Christian, I believe, should be willing to say, you know what, I'm going to have my default setting from stay to go, and Lord, if you'll direct and you open the doors, I will go take the gospel maybe to Honduras, maybe somewhere else in the world. But we should be doing all we can because our time is short, and we begin a great commission to get the gospel to the world. And souls have never heard the gospel in Honduras and many other countries, and we got to do all we can so we can see the world reach the gospel in this generation. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of It's All About Missions. And we'd like to ask you to do a couple things for us. The first thing I ask you to do, so if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date when all of our new episodes drop. And that way, as a new episode comes, you'll get a notification that lets you know, hey, we've got a new episode of It's All About Missions. Second thing I ask you to do, if you haven't yet, please make sure to leave us a review. These reviews are very vital, and they help us out, and they help other people to see us in the podcast player of choice. They'll see us and see those reviews and say, hey, I want to check out this podcast. And lastly, one other thing I'd like you to do, why don't you share us with a friend, a family member, somebody you know, and say, hey, why don't you go over and check out It's All About Missions. That'll help us grow our audience, help people to know more about It's All About Missions, and guess what? It'll help more people get involved in reaching the world with the gospel. I want to challenge you to know that the Bible, it's all about missions. And as a Christian, your life should be all about missions. And what are you going to do to impact the world with the gospel in this generation?